Oh, it's very bad for Russia. Today, the European Parliament has adopted the resolution under which they ask the European Union to create a Special International Tribunal. It will be used to prosecute Russian and Belarusian government and military officials for their war crimes. What are the chances that this tribunal will actually be created? Who will be prosecuted during this tribunal? And what are the potential punishments for those who are found guilty? And these are the questions that we'll be talking about in today's video. What's up, investors? Benjamin L. and people of Reddit, it's the Russian Dude, and this is your daily update on Russian-Ukrainian war as of Thursday, May 19th. You can see the main events of the day to my right, along with the timestamps. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Dmitry Kuleba, has reported that the European Parliament has come up with the resolution about creating a Special International Tribunal. This tribunal will be used to prosecute Russian and Belarusian government and military officials for their war crimes. This is basically something similar which was created after the Second World War to prosecute the Nazis. So basically this resolution was adopted by the European Parliament, and now they're asking the European Union to create this special tribunal. And in my personal opinion, this tribunal has a very good chance of becoming a reality. Simply because you just cannot let these war crimes go unpunished. So I don't think it's gonna be like, okay, the war is over, so okay, let's just go home. Dozens of thousands of people died from both sides, and there's supposed to be people who will answer for this. And obviously among the very first people who will be prosecuted during this tribunal will be the highest military and government officials from Belarus and especially from Russia. The only difference between military tribunal after the Second World War and this tribunal is that most likely death penalties will not be awarded, because most countries, especially the ones on the west, have put these death sentences long behind them. Most likely the punishments will be lives in jail and huge financial penalties which will go towards post-war reconstruction of Ukraine. And by the way, if you like this style of daily news reporting, feel free to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Also, please make sure to check the link in the description if you want to receive additional content such as daily Zoom calls and Q&A sessions. All the proceeds will be donated to Ukraine at the end of each month. Thanks so much, and let's continue. Welcome to another episode of ridiculous Russian propaganda, because apparently some people actually missed it. And yeah, let me know in the comments if you do enjoy this segment. So today we have this statement by Jeremy Clarkson, who is the ex-host of Top Gear TV show. And he said that because of the situation in Ukraine, especially because of the country of Ukraine, the world will turn into cannibalism in the nearest future. And I know it is not ridiculous Russian propaganda, but what makes it Russian, it is because Russian media agencies took this phrase and they started spreading this everywhere across entire news segment in Russia. First of all, I'm certain that this statement that Jeremy Clarkson made was definitely taken out of context. But this did not stop Russian propaganda agencies to use this exact statement as the official vision of the future by Europe. I will not be surprised if this statement will be discussed by political experts during some political TV shows in Russia. As I see it, there will be many respectable people sitting on the couches with like these straight faces, imitating like they're thinking and saying, yes, I do think that people will be cannibals. But that's basically the thing. As soon as somebody from the West, especially if it's a famous person, says something ridiculous, Russia grasps onto this as something serious, which just once again shows the level of Russian propaganda. Every single day, more and more Russian officials start to change their narrative regarding Ukraine. And the main change in their narrative is that it becomes much softer, compared with the original narrative, which was going as following. Yes, we need to liberate the entire country of Ukraine. We need to kill every single Nazi. Ukraine will be free from Nazism and nationalism. There will be no negotiations with terrorists. Russia will win in this war unconditionally. And now more and more Russian officials, they start saying that they're hoping that peaceful negotiations between Russia and Ukraine will resume in the nearest future. For example, the representative of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia, Andrei Rudenko, said that Russia hopes that these talks will resume as soon as Kyiv is ready for them. So as you can see, it is even the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia who is already acknowledging that Ukraine is the country that sets the future direction of this war. So yes, it all started as that Russia will unconditionally win and we're not even gonna negotiate with terrorists. Now it becomes, okay, let's hope that Ukrainians will talk with us. And it feels like that eventually this narrative will become something like Russians begging Ukrainians to leave their country alone. Today, the people of Russia have received the official response from the Ministry Ministry of Defense of Russia regarding what these Z and V symbols mean. And long story short, the response goes as following. The Ministry of Defense of Russia is not responsible for the creation of these symbols, and these symbols were painted on the military vehicles by the own initiative of Russian soldiers, which basically means Ministry of Defense of Russia is not responsible for these new swastikas. These were the Russian individual soldiers who did this, and the others followed their example, which in my own understanding looks as following. No, it was not us who created this symbol, it was them. And at the same time, these symbols, especially the letter Z, is being pushed across every single patriotic event that is happening right now in Russia. But yeah, once again, I think the main reason why they're saying that it was not them who created this symbol is to once again soften the narrative of Russia against Ukraine. Because once again, looks like Russia is realizing that they're having very big troubles invading Ukraine. So it kinda looks like they're trying to create a soft landing for themselves. The president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, proposed to extend the martial law and mobilization for another 90 days starting May 25th. Previously, Zelensky was only extending this martial law and mobilization only in 30-day increments, which according to him and his advisors was giving this sense of false hope to Ukrainians, because people were thinking that the war might be over in 30 days. But in reality, we now see that this war might go on for an extended period of time. And after hearing this proposal by Zelensky himself, the advisor to the president of Ukraine, Alexei Arestovich, now also unfortunately thinks that this war will not be over before even fall of this year. And don't worry, it does not mean that Ukraine is giving up its hopes or the chances of Ukraine winning this war becoming smaller. No, the strategy from Ukraine is basically the same, is to accumulate as many offensive weapons as possible and then launch massive counteroffensive. What Arestovich means here is that Ukraine will most certainly win in this war, it will just take longer. Today, the new press secretary of the White House, Karine Jean-Pierre, was blaming Russia for the rising inflation in the United States. Karine replaced the previous press secretary of the White House, Jem Psaki, but the narrative basically hasn't changed. Which is like the reason for the 40-year record inflation in the United States of America is not money printing for the last 2 years, but the actions of Vladimir Putin. And I mean, my position about the Russian government is pretty obvious, but I think it is still ridiculous to blame them for your own internal problems. Russian political expert Kirill Mikhailov thinks that Ukrainian forces now have much higher chances at liberating the region of Kherson. Kherson is the city which lies in the south of the country. And the main reason Kirill Mikhailov gives us is that it is logistically easier for Ukrainians to protect this city, which basically means that sending supplies and new soldiers will be much easier and faster for Ukraine rather than for Russia. And the second reason is that this city of Kherson no longer gives any geographical benefits to Russia, especially after Ukrainians were able to sink the Russian Navy flagship Moskva. What it basically means that in the nearest future we might see Ukrainians starting liberating the south of Ukraine as well. Today, the Congress of the United States of America has approved $40 billion support package to Ukraine. This money will be used to show military, financial and humanitarian support to Ukraine. And at this very moment, this bill is only awaiting the signature of the President of the United States of America, Joe Biden. President Zelensky already thanked the Congress of the United States through his Twitter. Today, a bill has been introduced in the Russian parliament which allows the President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, to establish temporary governments outside of Russia. And I'm not entirely sure how this will work with the other countries, but this is basically what it means. Previously, whenever Russia wanted to take some lands from Ukraine, it was always going through the same 3 steps. First of all, Russia was sending its own infiltrators into targeted regions. The second step is that these infiltrators were working hard to make these regions separate from Ukraine, which is basically exactly what happened in Donbass with the regions of Lugansk and Donetsk. And the final third step is to make a referendum about joining Russia. So all these methods are extremely questionable, and not a single territory which separated in this way was officially acknowledged by anyone else except Russia. And now with this new bill, it looks like that the Russian government wants to make this process look official, I guess. So what it means that instead of sending these infiltrators and letting them work for years before they can even separate from Ukraine, everything will be much faster. If this bill passes, Putin will just sign an order and say, okay, the new leader of Lugansk is this guy. And that's basically it. Now we recognize this as an independent republic. And I don't know about you, but I don't think that the reaction of any country outside of Russia will be like this. "Oh no, the Putin signed an order and now this guy is our official leader and representative. That's it guys, we have to give up, we're becoming Russia now." The defense intelligence of the United Kingdom reports that Putin started purging his highest admirals and generals. Specifically who we are talking about here is the ex-admiral of Russian Black Sea Navy, Igor Osipov. He was removed from his position shortly after the Russian Navy flagship Moskva was sunk by Ukrainian forces. One of the main goals of this ship was to provide fire support for those paratroopers who were supposed to land in the south of Ukraine. But because the ship was sunk, advancing in the south for Russia became so much harder. And because of this, Russia decided now to concentrate just in the east of Ukraine. So as you can see, just by sinking one major ship, Ukraine has closed the access for Russian forces in the entire south of the country. Another general, Sergei Kisel, was also removed from his position earlier. He was one of the main military figures who was responsible for capturing the region of Kharkiv, which at this very moment is completely liberated by Ukrainian army. So as you can see, if you are a higher military official in Russia and you fail, you're basically getting purged. Yesterday, the representative of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia, Maria Zakharova, said that in case Finland and Sweden joins NATO, Russia will have a surprise for them. And we jokingly assume that this surprise will be basically military-related surprise. But today, the Russian Senator Valentina Matvienko confirmed that this surprise will be military-related. What she basically meant in her statement is that Russia will mobilize the amount of weapons and military vehicles which will be the same equivalent as those of NATO. So let's say Finland joins NATO and now they will have 100 more tanks closer to the border with Russia. And in response to that, Russia will bring also 100 more tanks. Another thing Valentina Matvienko mentioned is that as soon as this special military operation will be over, she hopes that the talks between Russia and West will be resumed. Which is, to be honest, shows once again that the narrative of Russia regarding this war is becoming soft. And the reason for this is because most likely Russia is realizing that it starts to lose in this war. The head of Donetsk Republic, Denis Pushilin, mentioned that more than half Ukrainian soldiers have left the territory of Azovstal factory. And at the same time, he is certain that these soldiers will not be rescued by Ukrainian side by exchanging them for Russian prisoners of war. And the reason for his statement is because he considers them real Nazis. That is why they should be prosecuted and jailed. Thank you so much for your attention. Check the link in the description. Stay safe and see you tomorrow.